This is the Free Zone Communiqué, transmitting from Virginia's unoccupied sector. If you think smart cities, DEI, censorship, government intrusion, bug paste, and other left-wing nonsense are no longer a possibility, think again. We've won one election with slim majorities. Our work to rebuild a free and sane America has just begun.
This is the Free Zone Communique on the P4B. I'm your host, Matt Jordan, bringing hope to people trapped behind the wire in blue cities. Today we have an amazing guest, quite possibly the biggest ever, and we've had some big names recently. We had Evan Syatt last week, and he's awesome. As a matter of fact, Evan was the guy who introduced me to our guest today. His name is Bob Zeidman. He is a high-tech guy. I'm going to go through his intro. It's a little long-winded. I want you to get a feel for who we're dealing with here. So put on your high-tech hat, and if you don't have one, just channel whatever you know about the high-tech world, and you'll understand the significance of what I'm about to say. Bob, in 1987, Zeidman founded the Zeidman Consulting, which provides hardware and software design, engineering support for high-tech litigation. The company still operates. Zeidman is the president. He's handled cases like Brocade versus A10 Networks and Connecticut U versus Facebook. The movie Social Network was based on that. He also was involved in the Texas Instruments versus Samsung Electronics, which resulted in an award for his client of over $1 billion. We're talking about a heavy hitter here. Zeidman developed software tools for Synth OS and Code Suite. In 1992, he invented remote backup and founded the company eVault, Remote Backup Services. The company closed in 99. They sold to Seagate Technology. Also in 99, he founded Chalkboard Network. A lot of us know about that. He ran as president until 2002. Let's see, December 2002, he founded Zeidman Technologies, which provides software tools for embedded software development. The company patented SynthOS software, which automatically synthesizes optimized source code. See, at this point, my head explodes in terms of information. 2007, Software Analysis Forensic Engineering Corporation, which provides software tools for intellectual property litigation. Company's main product is Code Suite. I believe it or not, as long as this is, I am racing through it. In 2011, Zeidman founded Sam Anna Designs, makes practical accessories. Its first product was Sam Anna Luxury Wallet. In 2012, he founded Swiss Creek Publications, an independent publisher which publishes Zeidman's books. He's got, is 7 correct, Bob? 7 books, is that the correct number?
The number keeps going up, so that might be roughly correct.
The one I think I need to get into is Just Enough Electronics to Impress Your Friends and Colleagues. I'm a technical knucklehead. In 2013, Zeidman founded Furtiva, a video-on-demand website to provide commercial-free content while sending second-screen advertisements to a highly targeted audience. Wow. Bob Zeidman, welcome to the Free Zone Communique.
Matt, thanks for having me. So, you didn't need that whole background, but I appreciate it. Yeah, I'm happy to go into any of them. Some of those businesses have been very successful, some not so much. Some I've sold the intellectual property for, and I have a lot of fun stories about them.
Wow. It's an amazing background. I had no idea you were involved in so many things. But this is funny. I worked so hard. So many of my guests, even unknown to me, were from Delco, from Delaware County. People I was talking to from Texas, from California, we get to talking, turns out they're from Delco. This
Mm.
show became like the Delco reunion show.
Eh,
So my last two guests were West Coast. I said, I'm breaking away from Delco here. And Evan said, you got to talk to my buddy Bob Zeidman. And also at one point from California, now from Nevada. We'll talk about that. But once I did my research, my man was born in Mount Airy.
Yep.
That's you can
Philadelphia.
throw a rock at it from my old house.
I got my Eagles backdrop here.
My man. Did you catch the game?
I saw parts of it.
That was
Um,
unbelievable.
yeah, an unbelievable blowout. I was really surprised.
The I think the game was characterized. The picture's going to pop up on your screen if you're watching. Uh, of DeJean after an interception, coming around on the wide side, full tilt, and I'm trying to remember the name of the player that was. Oh, Caliendo was on his belly
Hmm.
as DeJean runs away. DeJean's 22 years old. It's his birthday. It's his first season in the NFL. He scores a pick six in the Super Bowl.
Hmm.
That encapsulates the entire day. And I was ready for today.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
Cut I got my version of Super Bowl rings on. But yeah, so that was an amazing day. My son threw a Super Bowl party, which was really a challenge. He just lost his best friend and father-in-law days before. These guys were steaming buddies, business partners, and he still put on the best Super Bowl party I've ever seen. And it was uplifting for the whole family. And Mason would have been proud of Kenny, I can tell you that.
Ah, that's nice. I can tell you, I wish my friends threw Super Bowl parties. I'd pay more attention to the game, but for some reason, my friends just don't put on these parties. So, um,
Is
I'm
anybody from the towns that were in the Super Bowl?
I must know Philly people. I'm trying to think. Most of my Philly friends are strewn all about the country. But I don't know, my friends just aren't into it, which is a shame because I've been to a few Super Bowl parties and had some good times. Maybe I should throw my own next time.
Yeah, you should. Next year when we win it again.
Yeah.
I have my buddy Ron comes on and talks sports. And I'm always asking him about the mathematical possibilities. So I got to send him a message asking him mathematically, have we won the next Super Bowl yet? I just want to know now. Uh, if there's one criticism of the game, it was almost anticlimactic.
Well, I think, it was a blowout, but it wasn't that exciting. Um, but I'm surprised, Kansas City was predicted to win and they didn't even score. Did they score? I'm trying to remember. Did they score at the end? I heard that Philly put in its third string at that point.
Well, I opened my big mouth, superstition being what it is. We were about 9 minutes out and we were shutting them out. And I turned to my son and I said, has there ever been a shutout in the Super Bowl? So he starts digging on his phone. And it was within a minute, I think, minute and a half, Kansas City scored for the first time.
Yeah, I think Philly had its third string in at that point. I can tell you a worse blowout was I went to grad school at Stanford, and my undergrad was Cornell. And actually, Cornell used to play Princeton. It was Cornell and Princeton had a football rivalry that I think at the time, like in the 80s, was the longest rivalry in continuous rivalry in football history. And then Princeton had a good team that year, and they announced that they weren't going to play lousy teams like Cornell, which is not even good for the Ivy Leagues. Not a good team. They've had a few good players over the years, but so Cornell had to find another university to play, and they decided to come out to California and play Stanford. I was in grad school at Stanford, so I went to the game, and I can tell you the whole stadium was pretty much cheering for Cornell because they felt so bad for him. It was something like a 64-0 game.
Oh my God. That's like back in the Westchester days. Westchester is a small university. Definitely B list when it comes to sports. But for 2 years in a row, they could not lose. They were
Hmm.
beating major teams like 72-6, you know, and that didn't last long.
Stand by. More to follow.
Want to shop for fun, unique, and patriotic gear from your home or office? Welcome to Po River at PoRiver.etsy.com. Show your pride with our awesome collection of Trump gear, hats, tees. We've got everything to make a statement. Stand out with P4B and Free Zone gear. Bold designs, quality apparel, and accessories, which of course you won't find anywhere else. Love coffee? You'll love our collectible coffee mugs. Some artistic, some hilarious. Start your morning with a smile, literally. And for something truly special, check out the Old Gunner's handcrafted items made with skill, history, and heart. Old Gunner, that's me. Po River is not just shopping, it's an experience and an excellent place to find great gifts. Visit PoRiver.etsy.com today and find something you'll love. So, yes, we established the fact that you're a homeboy, as it turns out, but not for a long time. You did live in California. You and your wife, Carrie, were among those starting to lead the thinking people out of
Hmm.
California.
By the way, I might need to correct what I just said. I forget what I said, but it was Cornell Rutgers.
Cornell Rutgers,
Rutgers,
yeah, yeah.
Rutgers had a great team. Yeah, Rutgers had a really good team for like 1 or 2 years. Anyway, sorry, just wanted to correct the facts there.
Yeah, yeah. I remember when Rutgers was quite the team, and they do have good years. They have good years. Good game. But yeah, so you guys were ahead of the power curve coming out of California. What inspired that?
Well, a lot of people ask us, and my wife and I like to say we moved from California to America because California. So let me, by the way, let me just give you an epilogue first. The epilogue is Carrie, my wife and I got involved in politics here. And we not only saw some of our candidates win, but I was able to stop ranked choice voting from being put into the Nevada Constitution. I worked on that project with the Nevada Policy Research Institute. And we woke up after election day, and of course, President Trump also got elected. And we thought, wow, it's just so rare to wake up to victory. In California, we gave up being involved in politics 15, 20 years ago because we had zero effect. California passed every bond. We knew if there was a bond on the ballot, we just voted against it. Didn't matter what it was, we'd vote against it and it would pass. Every Democrat got elected, every stupid policy that anybody could think of was put in place. And the other thing is, I mean, the main thing that it came down to was our taxes were continually going up, our cost of living was continually going up, and our standard of living was going down. Crime was going up, traffic was going up. We stopped going out. There were homeless all over the place. Um, it just we stopped going out anywhere at night. We'd work from our houses and watch TV at night and pay all of our taxes and think, why are we doing this? Why don't we go someplace where the values are more in line with ours and where the cost of living is lower? And I was getting into poker, coming out to Las Vegas regularly, and she was coming with me. And we said, hey, Vegas is a nice place to go. So we actually moved, told my mom and my brother, who we'd convinced to come to California from Philly. Well, my mom came from Philly, my brother came from North Carolina. We'd convinced them 5 to 10 years earlier, and we thought, how are they going to react? And the reaction was, hey, we're coming out with you. So now my whole family's here. We see each other more often, and we really love it here.
Nice, nice. My family's nowhere near that adventurous.
Well, I
I
was really surprised. My mom is 97 years old, so she was like 92. She doesn't like change in her life, but if my brother and I were moving here, she was going to move here too.
Yeah, good enough to be with you. Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. I've lived all over the country, and most of my family stays pretty much within southeastern Pennsylvania.
Yeah, yeah.
We have one son, a little more adventurous. He lives in Williamsburg,
Okay.
and I have 11 grandchildren.
Wow.
So I'm up and down I-95 quite a bit. You know, it's tough. You only see them on big weekends like the Super Bowl party.
Well, I can tell you in California, my brother lived about 30, 40 miles away. He'd invite us over for dinner on Sundays. And after about an hour and a half, 2 hours, a lot of times my wife and I would, we'd call him from the car and say, we're only halfway there, so we're going to turn around. We can't make it in time. That's how
Wow.
bad traffic was in
Yeah.
California.
Yeah. Oh, California. Your wife, who, by the way, is a pistol from what I can read, she was talking about um, leaving California. And she said people were saying the rich aren't paying their fair share. And she's quoted as saying, "Excuse me, we're paying our fair share and most of yours."
Yeah,
She's
yeah.
right. She's right. People don't understand what Americans are economically ignorant. They truly are. I am no genius. You know, my biggest claim to fame in the last week is I made omelets last Friday, but
Congratulations.
I've read Henry Hazlitt. I've read Smith, Thomas Sowell. It doesn't take a lot to start to understand what politics is and how it works. And not politics, excuse me, economics. It's simple and as basic as gravity. The economics we practice politically is the manipulation of economics,
Hmm.
and always based on guilt and emotion, paying your fair share. But the wealthiest people pay, the wealthiest 10% pay 60%
Yeah, it's
almost.
a high percentage. I can tell you, what I think of is both sets of grandparents emigrated to the United States with nothing uh, at the turn of the last century, like, early 1900s. They started businesses, they became successful. I mean, when I say successful, they became middle class. I mean, just
Right.
barely middle class. They lived through the Depression, which really hurt everybody, um, and hurt them pretty badly. But they became, I would say lower middle class, struggling, but had enough money to get by. Their kids started businesses and went to work for big companies, depending on what it was, and they succeeded. And their goal for, my generation was to do well in business, to make money and do it ethically and continually. And so, when I was a little kid, I always took every opportunity to sell stuff. I sold old comic books. I, sold my coin collections. If I could make money, if I needed to, and we didn't have a lot of money. So if I needed money for something, I needed to raise it myself. But one attitude that I've seen change in America, I should say I've seen change in the media. Uh, I hope it's not changing in America as much as it's portrayed. But when my dad and I would be someplace and we'd see somebody in a big Cadillac, for example, our first reaction, my dad would turn to me and say, "Hey, you study hard in school and work hard, and one day that can be you." But nowadays, a lot of people seem to say that guy doesn't deserve it. Where did that attitude come from?
Well, that's the thing. I worry about this pendulum people talk about. Hard men create good times create weak men create hard times create hard men.
Yeah.
And so it goes. But I've worried because of the electronics, and maybe we'll go into that a little bit later, but because of the distractions in life, I worry that the pendulum may have swung to good times and weak people, and we're not able to get that thing to swing back. We have two generations who can barely start a lawnmower,
Yeah.
who've never changed the oil in their car. They are helpless. And I wonder what would happen if we had a Great Depression kind of situation or a theater war situation. Would these two generations be able to bear up under that kind of punishment and become the hard men again?
Well, I think hard times makes hard men. And I think that would happen, but it would take a while. Would we survive? I don't know. I mean, people said America was weak before World War I and before World War II, but we weren't. We just needed some waking up. I try to be optimistic. Look, I'm more optimistic since Trump came into office than I was before. Things are getting done. People are not afraid to say they like these things getting done. I still have the people on the left that I know making crazy statements about how we're living in a dictatorship, which is
Ah,
really ridiculous, or
they haven't a clue.
fascism, or I'm Jewish, and my Jewish friends rarely say anymore, like they used to, that Trump is an anti-Semite, but they say he encourages anti-Semites. I don't know. I don't think, giving selling arms to Israel and supporting Israel and making laws to stop anti-Semitism and kick Hamas supporters out of the country, that doesn't encourage many anti-Semites. But but I feel good about everything that he's doing, almost everything, like 90% of what he's doing. And the other 10%, I'm just going to keep an eye on. But so maybe the country is turning, getting rid of DEI programs, things like that. We'll see.
Yeah, DEI is among the distractions. Um, I was going to
Also,
put this for a little later, but we can roll with it.
I was just going to say, that comes to mind is what I really hate is when people say that illegal immigrants are doing the jobs that Americans don't want to do or can't do. Wow, when I was growing up, there was not a job that I didn't want to do or that I couldn't do. There were jobs I didn't want to do, but I did them because I needed to. I mean, where have we come as a society where you say, oh, we're going to bring in people, I mean, basically saying we're going to bring in inferior people who do the jobs because we're too good to do them. I was never too good to do any job.
I have a coffee mug that I actually designed. I sell it out of my support site, Bow River. And on the front is Trump laughing, quoting Nancy, saying, and then Nancy said, we need the immigrants down south to pick the fruit.
Yeah, yeah.
I even have the date she said it. And it it it's hard to fathom that people don't grasp what's going on with what the motivations are of these politicians. One thing you did mention, the idea of the immigrants coming here and doing the labor, and I agree with you, what you said about having a job. I've been working since I was 12, and I've had jobs I hated and jobs I loved. I did them all.
Yeah.
But if Trump is successful in a lot of the things he wants to create, he will create a prosperous America. But in between, I want people to understand there will be pain
Yeah, yeah.
to bear up under, and we can't let go just because it's painful and say, okay, blow the whole project out the window. We have to um, um, allow for the pain to find out how much things really cost. For example, if you had American teenagers and young adults out there working the fields alongside legal immigrants and migrant workers, you're going to find out how much your tomatoes really cost
Yeah.
in a free economy, a free and legal economy.
Right. Well, it might be that your tomatoes cost more or your grapes cost more, but your taxes go down. Uh, so, um, yeah, it'll be interesting. I wrote an article right after the election. I'm hoping, I like to think that maybe Trump read it or one of my friends gave it to him. Uh, although I mean, I'm just saying that jokingly, although it'd be cool if that were the truth. But I said Trump needs to rip off the Band-Aid. And amazingly, he's doing it. He
Yeah.
was so prepared for coming into office. I'm amazed at the incredible number of things he's getting done. But I said everything needs to be done quickly because he's got 4 years, and in 4 years, people need to suffer the pain of the ripped off Band-Aid
Yeah.
and get over it and see how good things are, hopefully in 4 years. Otherwise, the Republicans are going to lose in 4 years. If the stuff he's doing now were spread over 4 years, it would give everybody enough time it'd give the Democrats enough time to say, look, it didn't work. So if you do it now, people complain, the media hates him, they'll write about all the bad stuff he's doing. But in 4 years, I'm hoping people will say, hey, things are pretty good.
Yeah, one of the offsets, despite my warning, is there's every possibility now that you'll have growth in value and growth in household income.
Hmm.
That's the weekly household income is always the marker you really want to watch in terms of how life is in America. Even though, yes, we're going to find out a tomato picked by a legal worker might be a little more expensive, your household income is going to make up for that. And it
Yeah.
may chase, up and down a little bit as the economy grows. But economic growth with value and income will be the difference between what we've done for the last 4 years and for 70 years before that and today.
Yeah.
Like you said, I don't agree with everything he does. I don't agree with the tariffs, certainly. I think Smoot, Holly, and I think, yeah, that's messing up. But tariffs are 90% of the time, they're just a wash or they hurt both countries that the tariffs are the tug of war between. Um, if it
So
accomplishes getting more factories built in America, okay, that's a good thing.
see what I feel about the tariffs. The tariffs on Canada and Mexico are really interesting because Trump is using them as leverage to get other things done. So that's really
Right.
fascinating to me. But I don't really want tariffs on Canada, although I understand that the Canadian government subsidizes a lot of products that are shipped to America. So when a government subsidizes products like China does a lot, then I think it's okay to enforce a tariff
Yeah.
because if we can bring manufacturing back to America through these tariffs, if China were implementing fair trade, I think India is a much fairer trading partner.
Yeah.
And they can do something cheaply and we can get it there, and that's fine. I don't think it deserves a tariff. But China, I think, we need to take power away from the communist government there. So, I see the tariffs as a good thing, although there'll be pain in the short term.
Yeah. I always characterize China's economy as a big bowling ball standing on 4 or 5 toothpicks.
Mm.
They have created a mess for themselves. They print money at a rate 5 times what we print it at, and we're maniacal in the way we print money.
Yeah,
Um, if push came to shove, it would be very easy to pull the rug out from under China. We want to make sure that we have onshored as much manufacturing as possible
right,
before we do that.
right.
But it can be done. And I don't have to tell you, you're a world-renowned businessman. You understand these things better than I do. But there was one thing I forgot to mention at the beginning of this, and this is one of my favorite things. We're going to talk about some other stuff in a minute. Absolutely just as fascinating, but this is kind of funny. A lot of people don't know that you're the guy that is in the process of taking $5 million away from the pillow guy,
Right.
Mike
It's-
Lindell.
That's my big claim to fame. Mike Lindell claims he's got a video, about an hour-long video about me, although he gets my name wrong. Claims I'm a bleeding heart liberal uh, because he can't imagine that some conservative would actually challenge him.
Excuse me. Yeah. Step us through that because uh, I already know he's trying to welch on his bet. Tell me how that's going. How did it start and how did it get to where you are?
Sure. So, basically, what was it in 2021? Lindell said he had proof right after the inauguration of Biden. He said that he had proof that the voting machines had been hacked by someone. The culprit kept changing, but eventually he landed on China. China had hacked into the voting machines and he had proof of it, and he was going to release it at a symposium in South Dakota in August. And he was inviting experts, cyber experts, to come and confirm that it was true. And friends of mine
Now,
started
for the
calling.
record, for the record, you would not have been upset if it was true. That was
Right. No,
okay.
well, I thought nobody, and he said he was offering $5 million if he could disprove him. And so I thought, well, first of all, he's got the proof. Uh, I'm not gonna be able to, nobody would offer 5 million if he didn't have the proof, or at least he believed he had the truth. Now, the thing is, I thought it might not be correct, but he believes it and his experts believe it. Uh, so in this 3-day symposium, there's no way you can examine all that data and come to a conclusion. So I thought, what's the point of going to South Dakota, looking at the data when there's a good chance it's true, it's correct, and if it's not correct, I'm not going to be able to show anything anyway. So and I thought, yeah, I thought it'd be look, I thought I'd be at a history making event in any case. Either uh, he's going to show that the election was fraudulent, and then what do? We've got a constitutional crisis. The wrong man is in office.
Right.
Or he's going to be proven incorrect, and somebody's going to take him up on his challenge. Either way, I'd be at an historic event. And my friends were calling me and telling me I should go because this is my area of research. This is what I do for a living.
Right.
I analyze data. So yeah, so I decided to go. I got myself an invitation, and I went there, and in 3 hours, I knew the data was wrong.
Yeah.
It turns out it was so badly disguised. It's kind of like, what can I explain it? Like, you've got a sheet of paper with, random stuff on it. But if you take every fifth character, you find out that it's the Declaration of Independence. You'd say, oh, well, this is the Declaration of Independence. This is not, whatever it's supposed to be. Well, that's what it was. I looked at the data, and because I've been doing this for so long, I just recognized patterns in the data. And I realized that there was a spreadsheet, there was some Word documents, all filled with numbers or gibberish. And they weren't this sophisticated data that he said it was. So I wrote up a report over the years. This is what I testify in court on this stuff. So I write up reports pretty easily these days. I wrote up a report, filed it online with the Copyright Office in case he claimed that I didn't submit a report. And then I gave it to his people. I wrote all this up in a book called Election Hacks and waited and waited and waited. And finally, I got in touch with some law firms, and one was willing to take this on contingency, meaning they don't pay until I get paid. I mean, they don't get paid until I get paid.
Right.
And, we filed an arbitration. By the way, he had me sign an arbitration agreement to look at the data. Everyone who looked at the data had to sign an arbitration agreement. So
Right.
It's his agreement. We went to arbitration. They claimed that I didn't provide the proof. The 3 arbitrators unanimously decided that I had proven that this was nothing related to the election. It was just nonsense.
It was gibberish, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it's a shame. Every single person at the symposium, every single cyber expert agreed that this was gibberish. Not everybody agreed exactly what it was, but everybody knew it wasn't related to the election. I happened to be the only one who recognized what it really was, these Word documents and spreadsheets disguised as sophisticated data. And I was the only one who submitted a report. So in any case, everyone agreed, and we didn't know, okay, we actually tried to tell Lindell at the symposium. We we appointed one of us to go to Lindell at the symposium and say, hey, Mike, this is bad stuff. You should know this. This is not real data. But Lindell didn't listen, and the guy who we appointed kind of got caught up in the whole thing. Look, it's so easy to get caught up. You want this to be true. And suddenly you're standing in front of TV cameras, and Mike Lindell is saying, we have the proof. It's really hard for a lot of people to say, no, we really don't have the proof.
Yeah. I'm sure you must have had mixed emotions about having to slap him. I'll be honest with you. I've never been impressed with the man. I hear his story. I'm not sure I believe it. I don't think characters like that. Oh, he backs Trump. Great. That's good. Thank you. But his presence hovering is not helpful.
Yeah.
There were, in my opinion, massive problems in the 2020 and 2016 elections. And the 2022 election. But having somebody come up with something like that, this something he bought from some shady dude in the men's room. Hey, look, I got the
That
stuff.
that's almost true. He bought it from a known con artist.
Oh, great. But that doesn't help the cause that Trump is
Yeah.
fighting for. It doesn't help the people who are fighting to find out about these elections, who have to put up with judges who say you don't have standing just so they don't have to get involved in election law. You can't fight the fight, or it's harder to fight the fight when you got the pillow guy out there doing stuff like this.
Yeah, so when it was announced, it was big news when I won this arbitration. He challenged it in federal court. I won in federal court. Now he's challenging it in the appeals court. We're waiting to hear a decision from the appeals court. But when I first won, it made a lot of news, and Democrats had generally positive emotions about it, but kind of mixed because they know that I voted for Trump. And it's like, well, I mean, I get some, not death threats, but some threats. Like, how could you vote for Trump and destroy our country? But mostly I got positive reaction from Democrats saying, look, he showed that Trump was, that the election was fair and Biden's the president. But here's the thing. So first of all, Republicans, most of all my Republican friends were ecstatic, but people who didn't know me, I met some people who were very cautious. And I said to them, I'm sure there was fraud in the election. I don't know how much fraud. I don't know if it changed the election, but I can tell you this. Every case in America was being funded by Mike Lindell, the pillow guy. And every case was being thrown out because he doesn't know what he's doing. If he weren't doing that, we might have had some real cases going forward in court, but
Right.
he's stopped us from doing that.
I got to be honest. I think he got it in his head. If I can make a name for myself, I'll sell more pillows.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. I also think that he has a religious belief, literally a Christian religious belief. In his book, he says God told him that Trump needs to be president. And so, it's kind of like I explain it like Abraham killing Isaac, right? God told Abraham to sacrifice his son. So you don't argue with God, you just do it. And I think Lindell said, well, I heard from God that Trump needs to be president, so I need to do whatever I can to get him in office. But let me tell you something else that I find fascinating. In 2016, after the 2016 election where Trump beat Hillary Clinton, I have a recording, some news show did a short piece on someone in the Obama administration who said that for certain the voting machines were hacked. So when Hillary lost, there were Democrats saying that the voting machines were hacked. Then when Trump lost, there was Mike Lindell saying the voting machines were hacked. And now when Trump wins, I've actually got a video of this guy who claims he's a cyber expert, and he's being interviewed about how the 2024 elections were hacked. So one thing I can tell you is that this is where I'm an expert. I hack legally for a living under court order. The courts order me to go into some machinery and my team and to figure out how it works. So I can tell you that the chances of the voting machines being hacked are almost zero. And the reason is, I won't go into a lot of detail. There's some in my book, but there would be a trail. You can't hack into a machine without there being a trail.
Right.
And the most serious hacks in history have been discovered. So I thought Lindell had found the proof of hacking. He hadn't. But if the voting machines had been hacked, we would have proof of it by now, and nobody's come forward with proof.
Yeah.
I
The
think
problem,
there's easier ways of hacking an election, and that's like basically collecting ballots, especially with the ballot harvesting. Collect ballots from old age homes and write in the votes yourself, or tell the old people who to vote for. It's so much
that's
easier.
that's where the real cheating takes place. Uh, there could be somebody who might successfully hack into one county computer somewhere, and but the real cheating takes place in the stacking of the ballots. Um, the Harry Reid machine, where you're at,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
uh, their reputation among legitimate politicians, not just Kerry Lake, the thing they do best is produce extra ballots. That's what they do. You
Well,
know,
Harry Reid admitted that he had no problem lying if it would win an election.
hmm Yeah. the way you check, well, the way you prevent that, and the problem with what you just said, it's true. Everything you do on a computer leaves a trail. Somebody good enough can find where the little digits went, but that's too late when somebody suspects there might have been chicanery. And the way you beat it is paper ballots. Always have paper ballots. You can have a scanner, scan them through, the numbers get reported. Here's our stack of receipts. Every single voting precinct should have a stack of paper receipts.
Yeah, I knew people during the 2000 election that went to the Supreme Court with Bush v. Gore and the voting machines in Florida.
Mhm.
I knew people who seemed like they were all Democrats and they were complaining about electronic voting back then, but suddenly they're silent now for the most part.
Yeah,
Uh, I mean, well, they were silent when Biden won, I should say. They're probably going to come out of the woodworks now that Trump won.
yeah, yeah, and they'll reverse again. The crazy reversals, and it's not just Democrats guilty of this. I've seen Republicans do it in other areas on other subjects. Spending, for example, and printing money,
Yeah.
is they'll change their stripes overnight. Um, you talked about anti-Semitism earlier. It's almost laughable where the actual anti-Semitism in this country emanates from. And it ain't Billy Bob, you know, it's the Harvard educated snoot, Northeastern big city, who sees power and opportunity in that kind of division for themselves. And they're perfectly happy to exploit it.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. On the right, the anti-Semites are fringe minority, and you know who they are. They're easy to spot. They're wearing the
Yeah.
swastikas, they're giving real Heil Hitler salutes, not fake ones. But on the left, it's the people in academia, it's some in government. Actually, you look at people like Chuck Schumer, who's Jewish, who, to me, obviously loves power more than he loves his Jewish roots
Right.
or fairness. Here's a guy who switches positions depending on which way his party is going. He gave a speech in Congress only a few years ago about the threat of illegal immigration. And he was very forceful. Don't call it undocumented. These people are illegal. They need to be sent back. Wow.
I
He would now
remember that speech
protest the
when he
speech.
made it. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't understand that. I admire people. I'm going to say something strange. In a sense, I don't want this to be misconstrued, but in a sense, I admire Bernie Sanders because he believes what he believes. I think it's all wrong, but at least he's honest about what he believes, whereas so many politicians like Chuck Schumer believe whatever will get him in office. Oh, and that brings me to, I'll just say, after the Democrats lost, I'm sure you've seen all these, Democrats explaining what they need to do. Most of them explain that they need to get the message out. They didn't do a good job of getting the message out. But I think they need to decide what they stand for. If they just stand for all this woke stuff, then be proud of it. That's the message. And guess what? Only 10 or 20% of America agrees with you enough to vote for you. But if that's your message, you should have an ideology. It shouldn't be what is our message? It should be what is our ideology? And if our ideology is all woke, then be proud of that and stand for it and know you're not going to win an election again in the foreseeable future.
Yeah. I hate when they disguise that ideology or try to play momentary lip service to free market, low taxes, whatever, more responsible spending. When was the last Democrat you saw responsible about spending? You know, and now they're destroying. Again, this was going to be a different part of the show, but it works here.
Okay, good.
Uh, they're utterly destroying our demographic. I'm not a religious guy. As a matter of fact, when I get Evan back on, we're going to have a humdinger of a discussion. I brought him on to promote his book, so I didn't think that was the forum to. But there's so many questions now I do want to tackle with him, face to face. And one of them we actually agree on, but for different reasons. Abortion. Personally, I don't care if somebody says God says don't have abortion or that's not my bailiwick, but I see it as the most barbaric abrogation of responsibility we've ever concocted, especially late term abortion.
Yeah, yeah.
And that hurts our demographic. We have created a situation where it is now fashionable to be gay. Okay, if that's the way you feel as an adult, some people go through their whole lives that way. Some people experiment with it, but that means no babies for you, so long as you feel that way. And now we have twisted parents, teachers, quack Joseph Mengele doctors mutilating our children.
Yeah, that part disturbs me a lot. Look, I think if someone wants, I think if an adult wants to love someone, it's none of my business. What I don't like is that I have to celebrate it. I don't celebrate two heterosexual people having sex. I don't want to celebrate two homosexual people having sex. They do what they do, and I hope that they live good lives and treat people decently. But I don't want to celebrate someone's sex life. And certainly the mutilation of kids and giving them irreversible drugs is horrific. I can't believe we've gotten to that point in our society where people believe that is somehow a solution. And I remember when the liberals, well, liberal used to mean something different. I think I was a liberal in the true sense of the word, where the liberals in our society said, learn to love yourself, be who you are. But now they're saying, if you don't like who you are, chop off your body parts and take drugs and pretend to be something else. I don't, that part I can't understand.
Right. We had a tough enough time with coping skills in the last 20 years. Just coping skills to day-to-day life.
Yeah.
And now we're telling people you don't even have to be what you are. You can pretend you're something else. And like you said, you're talking about a lifetime of drugs now, a lifetime of
Yeah, I didn't even realize that as I learned more about it, drugs and operations and it's not like just once and done. It's yeah, you're right. It's a lifetime.
if you choose to do that as an adult, I would be critical of it for the very demographic reasons I was just discussing. We need to make babies in this society badly, and we're reversing what we're supposed to be doing. But if you're an adult and you make that decision, it's none of my business. When you tell me it's time to mutilate a kid,
Yeah, yeah.
because you want to be popular at your wine and cheese party and look like the cool adult, I have a real problem with that. And I don't mind saying it. And no, I don't celebrate pronouns either.
Well, I think there are at least two categories of adults who do that. One category is the people who've been frightened into thinking that their child's going to commit suicide if they don't do this
Right.
for them. And then there's the other who thinks, yeah, they want to be so open-minded that they're gonna, by the way, they won't do this to themselves, but they'll do it to their kids. It's kind of like Munchausen by syndrome by proxy.
You just took the words right out of my mouth. I wrote that 2 years ago. A kinky version of Munchausen syndrome.
Yeah, yeah.
Where these adults, these parents, oftentimes well-to-do women, get extra attention from their friends because, I have one child that's bi, I have one child that's non-binary, I have one child, we're going to start the hormones at 9. That's scary. But let's jump back. I want to talk about Robert some more. You got some fascinating things under your belt, and there's two more stories before I let you go. I want you to hit on me. The case of Texas Instruments. What was that? And I remember vaguely when it happened. I didn't know you were at the helm of this thing, but it's a fascinating story. If you could just relate basically how that went.
So if you're okay, I can give you a brief rundown on Texas Instruments, but people are always, they always want to know about the Facebook case.
Yeah, that was going to be the next one.
Okay. So Texas Instruments. So really, I was the junior guy on Texas Instruments. So Texas Instruments, they hold some of the most valuable patents in the world. And every few years, they basically threaten all the semiconductor companies and say, okay, we're going to make you pay, millions, well, hundreds of millions of dollars if you don't, if you don't, we're going to sue you for patent infringement. And then the companies, it's like a ritual. The companies all say, okay, well, go sue us. And then they hire teams of people like me. So I was actually the junior person on the team, which was really frustrating. By the way, they put together a team of brilliant people. It's kind of, I was really excited to be working with some of these people, Stanford professors, entrepreneurs, people from around the country. And they put us together and they had us take apart semiconductor handling machines. And basically, the same thing happens every year. Every few years. We didn't know that. But after a few months of this, Samsung basically caved in. Both sides had spent millions of dollars on lawyers and experts. And we were, I was working around the clock in Dallas, visiting these semiconductor facilities, wearing what are called bunny suits, which is kind of like a cheap astronaut suit. It's
Right.
not, it's not airtight at all. Looks more like a burqa. So
Yeah. I know he's talking about.
really, if you're claustrophobic, it's not good. And we were going in, taking machines apart. I've got a lot of funny stories, but for another time. And we were bringing down machines that were, making hundreds of thousands of dollars in chips for Texas Instruments per hour. So they didn't like us taking them apart. Nobody liked us taking them apart, but we had to do that to see how they worked. Anyway, one day after months, they said stop everything, and they had settled. So Samsung paid Texas Instruments about $1 billion in that case. The next year, I was hired on TIV Hyundai, and same thing happened, except that I worked on it for about a year. And then Hyundai finally said, okay, we'll agree to pay $1 billion. So it was my introduction. The thing that was frustrating back then is I was the new guy on the block. And so the lawyers would bring us in and say, we want you to do X, Y, and Z. And I'd say, hey, I've got an idea for this. And they'd say, Bob, do what we tell you to do. You're going to do this. And I would do stuff behind the scenes. I'll be honest with you. So like these Texas Instruments engineers, they get bonuses based on how many chips they produce per quarter. And if we bring down a machine they're no longer producing chips on that machine, it hurts their bonus.
Right.
So they really didn't. And also, if we break the machine, and we broke one machine, a guy went to Radio Shack. One of my colleagues went to Radio Shack, bought a chip, and put it back in the machine to get it to work again. And nobody knows.
Oh my God. They do now.
Yeah, right. That's true. It was a long time ago. So the thing is, I would go around behind everybody's back in a sense, or privately talk to the engineers who are running these machines. And I said, I promise you this is the last time. Because people would always say, this is the last time, we only need an hour. And then after 3 hours, they begged to come back. And the engineers were really upset because they're losing money. So I'd go to them and I'd say, look, I'm gonna watch everybody. I'm the junior guy, but I'm gonna watch everybody. I'm gonna guarantee one more time, 1 hour. Before we go in, I'm going to make sure everybody knows what information they need to get, what they're going to do. It's all planned. And we're just going to go in and get it. And so the engineers trusted me and they let us go in. But I was the new guy who, when I spoke up, they just kind of, ignored me. The lawyers did and the people in charge. And it was frustrating, but it paid great. I mean, really great. But nowadays, I've kind of built my reputation, so I'm the senior guy, and the lawyers ask me for advice, which is really nice. So in the Facebook case, have you seen the movie The Social Network?
I have. It's been a long time, but I did see it, and I remember the grilling in the boardrooms.
Yeah. So the Zuckerberg character, played by Jesse Eisenberg, he holds up these papers and said, I didn't steal your code. And I freeze frame that. Sometimes I give talks and I have that shot. And I say, if you zoom in real close, you'll see my name on those papers because I wrote the report that proved that Mark Zuckerberg did not steal code from the other Harvard students, the Winklevoss twins.
Uh-huh.
So first of all, I'll tell you, I saw that movie. I still couldn't tell people I'd worked on the case, but that's when I really built a name for myself, I
Right.
created tools for comparing software to find copying. And the first major case I had was that Facebook case. And since then, my business took off, both the
Oh,
software
so
business and the consulting. And I met Mark Zuckerberg once, very briefly. All I knew is he was the kid who started this company. Oh, I'll tell you the story. When they first called me up, they said everything they needed to do, price was no object. They were going to pay my rate. They were going to pay for the use of my tools, the software tools I created. And I got off the phone and I told my wife, I said, I just got the biggest case of my career. She said, wow, that's great. I said, yeah, they said money is no object. And she said, that's great. I said, there's one problem. I don't know if this company can pay. Have you ever heard of a company called the Facebook?
oh,
Like nobody had heard of it at the time.
well, at the time, it was getting really big really fast,
It
but
was.
so their wealth existed in the form of angel investors and things like that.
Yeah,
Um,
they had a lot of investment behind it. It was growing quickly, but it was mostly at universities. It wasn't out in the public very much. They had focused on university students. So anyway, I went in, I used my tools, I proved that Mark Zuckerberg did not copy any code. I'll also say that I watched the movie with the lawyers that worked on the case. I watched the movie with my employees. And as a side note, Aaron Sorkin, who wrote that screenplay,
yeah,
I think, despite the fact that I don't like his politics very much, I think he's one of the best, if not the best, screenwriter who's ever written for Hollywood. Everything he's done
I
is
watch all his movies.
yeah,
He's good, you know.
yeah.
Uh,
So I did that, and but one thing also I'd like to add, Zuckerberg is coming around, right? He met with Trump, he got rid of DEI, he got rid. By the way, also I wrote an article like 4 years ago telling Zuckerberg that he should get rid of the fact checkers and instead have public opinion determine whether something was true or false or acceptable or not. And it's funny, he's implemented my idea. I wrote about it in an article 4 years ago.
just
So
2 weeks ago, he said that the idea came from what Musk is doing the same thing with X, to
right. Right. Before Musk did it, I wrote about it too you can find it. I wrote for the American Spectator, this article about it. It was a letter to Zuckerberg. I never met Zuckerberg, but I examined his computer in depth when I was working on the Facebook case. They gave me his personal computer and I had to go through it and find everything on it. So I kind of know Zuckerberg a little bit. And I would tell people that I think Zuckerberg wants to do the right thing. I think he's always wanted to, but he's in this bubble of Silicon Valley. And I know I was in that bubble. And if
oh
you're
my
in that
God,
bubble, you think that's the real world and it's not.
right.
And I think he's finally learning that the real world is more about, he's into into masculinity, he's into free speech. I'm so happy to see this happening because I think that's his true personality, but it's really in Silicon Valley. I was there. It's hard to even talk about that without getting, chastised.
You just said something I commented about. I don't think I did it here, probably online on one of the social networks. Zuckerberg has more recently exposed himself to more real world people. He's gotten out of the bubble like you talked about. He's trying to become what appears to be a better man. He's hanging out with White from from the WW not WWF the Unlimited Fighting
Mhm.
UFC. Um, and I think that is opening his eyes to what actually truly works in the world
Yeah.
versus what you try to shoehorn into working, you know? I was wondering just before you came on today, what a different world it would be if there was a Bob Zeidman with the authority and knowledge you have today when IBM and Microsoft and Apple were duking it out in the 80s. There was a couple movies made about that, and in one, I forget the name of the kid. He was in The Breakfast Club. He was in one of the European vacations, but he played Gates, and he was gloating. I got the goods, you know. And he used to tell people, be careful what you show me. I'm taking it. If I see it, I'm taking it. He would tell people right to their face. It was
Yeah.
either IBM or Xerox. He did that too.
Apple, yeah, Apple stole from Xerox. One thing that's not known though. So I was involved with the Computer History Museum. I love computer history. I studied it since I was a kid. Got to meet some of my heroes when I moved out to Silicon Valley. But one thing that's not known is people say Steve Jobs stole from Xerox, and that's true. He got a tour of Xerox and then said, "Hey, this is great. I want to use this technology." Maybe stole is too big a word, but he took what was there and implemented it at Apple. And then Bill Gates took it from Apple, but what's not very well known, and I've been looking for this document for a while. I can't find it, but I had a copy in a book. Uh, the guy who took over Apple after Steve Jobs left, right, that Steve Jobs brought along, whose name slips my mind right now, the president, he actually signed over the concept for Windows. He signed it over to Microsoft. So Microsoft didn't do anything illicit. Basically, um,
This was the
oh,
graphic user interface fight, right?
yeah, graphic user interface, right. And the thing is, so Xerox invented it basically, and Jobs saw it and loved it and took it for Apple, and there was a big lawsuit there. But then Apple gave it to Microsoft because Apple needed Microsoft to survive because they needed Microsoft to write software for the Macintosh,
Right.
Apple's Mac. And Gates said, well, in return for we'll write software if you give us the rights to create our own window operating system. And they signed John Sculley signed the letter that said you have the rights to use this. So Bill Gates didn't steal it, you know.
Perhaps it was hubris. They thought nobody's going to match our thing.
I
So
think
yeah,
actually
go ahead, little man. You go ahead and do your little computer thing. Just write our code. Yeah.
I think it's a little different actually because I was at Apple right before Steve Jobs came back, and I was there right at the time he came back, before and after.
Right.
And Apple was on its way under. I mean, people don't realize it was a dying company and they needed as much help as they could get. Basically, they said to Microsoft, if you can help us survive by writing software, we'll give you the rights to anything you want. People don't remember in the late 1990s, I was at Apple designing firmware for their displays.
Right.
And it was a horrible place to work. Nobody wanted to work there. The quality was bad. And I had the ability to buy Apple stock cheap. And I thought that'd be fun, but it's a bad investment. This company won't be around in a few years.
Yeah. Don't you wish you hadn't said that? But
Yeah.
so when Jobs came back, that's what put it back on the map, right?
Yeah. Jobs was really, look, I know people who worked directly for Jobs and nobody liked him, but everybody respected him. He was a jerk,
Well,
kind
that's
of
the
like an
problem
Elon
with
Musk character.
guys operating on that level. I believe Gates, Jobs, and Elon are somewhere out there on the spectrum.
Yeah.
People aren't their thing. It's the laser focus is their thing. And
Yeah.
if people help with that, oh, that's awesome. That's great. They can relate to that. But beyond that, they're not relatable, and you can't expect them to be.
Yeah.
Our mission continues in a moment.
What is your latest book, and how long ago was it released?
Okay, so my latest book is Election Hacks, was released last year, and it's about my experience with the Mike Lindell arbitration. And the thing that I think people should know about it, there's a little bit of technology in there. I think I explain it in pretty simple terms, but it's mostly about the people. What would drive people to do this? What I found fascinating is, you asked me about Lindell, and when he was being deposed, I had this urge to go up to him and say, Mike, don't do this. I'm on your side. You think I'm not, but I am. And he wouldn't, I mean, it would have been bad. He wouldn't have believed me. My lawyer would have been upset. But, in the back of my mind, I wanted to do that. But I saw that he was so obsessed that he was hurting our cause. And then the people surrounding him were just fascinating to me. Most of them were people who had never done anything significant in their lives. I shouldn't say never done anything significant. They had not been as significant as they dreamed of being,
Right.
right? They wanted to be movers and shakers and change the world. And I know how that is. I want to be that way too. But they never had it, and here was their opportunity. And it's not that they were lying as much as they had to believe this to keep their life's dream going. And it's hard to shake that. And it's just fascinating because outside the courtroom, the people that work for Lindell that were fighting me were really friendly with me. We'd bump into each other and start talking about technology and poker. You know, I play poker and we were like buddies. And I think if the situation had been different, we would have been friends. Just really, and I wanted to dislike them, but I couldn't. But I disliked what they were doing.
Yeah.
So I hope it's an interesting read. That's my book, Election Hacks. You know, to give more insight about the people behind this, you know, this Mike Lindell's alleged hacking.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, one area I do want to get into and literally forgot about, and we've run pretty long. If I can one day have you back and you can teach me poker. I play poker as well as I golf, and I have yet to break 100 in the United States. So that's my
Break
poker.
100 like in the list of all-time poker players, or
No, just I would love to understand the concept of the game better than I
so
do.
you know, I've got a blog, by the way. It's called goodbeatpoker.substack.com, where I blog about my poker, sometimes in real time. I blog about the games. I've played the best players in the world, and I've beaten most of them at some point. But I have not done as well. I had like a year and a half that was really bad. 2025 is looking pretty good for me. But I blog about what I do right, what I do wrong, and the people. I mean, you get amazing characters, just you know, eccentric people, brilliant people, sometimes pretty stupid people playing poker. And I just love to write about them because it's the characters that are interesting, but
Uh,
also,
The name of the Substack again?
so it's Good Beat Poker, good, Good, beat, Beat, poker.substack.com.
Okay.
People,
I
even
will
people who don't
post
play poker love it.
I'll post a link to that and a link to the book.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
But I'll tell you, Bob, this was an awesome conversation. I could do this for another 3 hours. I'm glad you came by. You're always welcome at the P4B. If ever you see something you think, oh, this has to be said, you get with me and we'll get
Okay.
that together. But I really appreciate you taking your time. I feel very fortunate that in recent weeks, some very important people have stopped by, and you are definitely one of those people.
Well, thanks for having me, Matt. I really appreciate it. This was a
Not
lot
a
of fun.
problem. It's been great being with you.
Please tell a friend about the Free Zone Communiqué. We live and die with the share and subscribe buttons. Please use affiliate and sponsor buttons to support our work. Thank you very much for joining us today.